during long dry period with long low tide, and the perfect moment where, like for example, spark happened and the fire basically burned the mangrove stand. Number two, connecting the fragmented vegetation and habitat. We already have a lot of built environment subdivisions, roads, so difficult, no? Difficult to connect the remaining mangroves or to rehab those remaining mangroves. Hence, very important that land use planning that concerns the coastal areas with mangrove must be able to specify or indicate well the plan for mangrove, setting aside which mangrove areas would be, saved. Finding the right space for rehab. Now, future or forward-looking, the 2050 sea level, right? If we have this very narrow strip of coastal or open coastal areas that we want to plant mangroves, these are the areas left. By 2050, no, worst case scenario, whatever we have planted here will just be drowned, no, pagtaas ng sea level. And the problem with this one, mangroves can no longer migrate landward or to the higher elevation because they are already blocked with the built environment like houses. So when we look at the most ideal planting sites for urban mangroves would be those areas that are wide enough for them to migrate landward so that they can still accommodate, they can still be accommodated, no, and they can naturally survive. And placing clearly mangrove rehabilitations and conservation. Okay, nabanggit kanina. The reason for emphasizing that again, this is what I also observed. No, reclamation happens this way. The area being reclaimed, of course, is on the right side, just to be part of the bay or the sea. Okay, so they pump the sediment from the left side of your screen. There's a buoy and a pipe that goes to the right side. So the pumping happens on the left side, the sea front. Okay, and the problem with that is that anything that you remove from the seafront would have implication on the coastal. No, so as it depends when they're being pumped, no, the coastal level or the coastal sediment also recedes. Nahuhulog, no, kasi lumalalim, it becomes deeper. The coastal sediments start to erode. Hence, this is one of the photos I got from that site. And look at these remaining mangroves barely clinging on few sediments. So imagine during the time when perhaps there's no reclamation yet. This area used to be flat, no? But now the coast is already receding at very alarming rate. Connectivity, challenge number 5. Let's make mangrove plants, mangrove project, anything that we, any activities or projects that we have for mangrove connected with the broader picture of a watershed. Again, the lesson here is that everything is interconnected, integral part of the broader ecosystem or landscape. Even though we protect our coast very much or seriously, but up there in the mountain, they're still doing quarrying or illegal logging. That would have implication on the coastal area. So we need that integrated land use or integrated watershed management plan. So these are the rehabilitation checklists. The right species, planting in the right place, during the right timing and season. We don't want to plant during monsoon or storm months. We also need the right seedling production or nursery, field planting and maintenance. Most importantly, the right people. Like you, no, young foresters or young students pursuing forestry, no, because most of the time the problem would be like, we planted mangroves and then after that, then photos, then we call it successful, but no commitment at all to go back in that area and sustain. What we're after is not really survival, but long-term survival. No, it's the commitment, is the right vision. When we plant something, how do we see it? Are we just only seeing it like a seed or a seedling being planted, or are we seeing it like a forest later on for the future generation? That's why right people is very important. And in this case, like for example, community and action, particularly gender, no, gender empowerment, no, women participation in mangrove conservation. So in one of our study, no, we we examine why is there always disconnect. This is where it's coming from. The government, private sector, or even to some extent SUCs or students, they go to an area and do mangrove planting. And if you ask them what's the purpose of this, um, government or yung mga nagtatanim, private sector would say that this is for biodiversity, this is for climate change. But if you ask the local community, they are participating just because of the income. So right there and then, there's a disconnect. So there's a materialist in the an idealist divide. That's why a common understanding and vision and very important when we do mangrove conservation. If we can elevate the local community, that's not only an additional income for them, but is for their future generation and for the global population, that what because they're protecting a small piece of mangrove here that has a global significance already, something like that, or it will improve the biodiversity. So there should be, how to say, that harmonization, no, of and the reasons, no, or awareness why we are pursuing mangrove conservation. So in summary, let me again emphasize, because the topic is a science-based mangrove conservation. So conservation is not mere planting, but what we have found out in the field is more of people collaborating, institution collaborating in the governance, no, or protecting mangroves. So serious protection of the existing mangroves is very important. We need to find those areas that are degraded and restore them. Restoration, again, is different from rehabilitation. Restoration is we would like to bring back the functions, the original functions of the mangrove. Rehabilitation is just could be like bringing back some of those functions or just the vegetation. But the third one is institutionalized community-based livelihoods. At the end of the day, we have a lot of rural, poor coastal communities dependent on the coast, particularly on the mangrove forest. We have to institutionalize the programs by coming up with the right policies, sustainable programs, livelihood programs for them. So yeah, that's it. I hope you learned something from this topic, and I'm looking forward to our Q&A. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Dr. Gavanya. It is truly enlightening how science-based mangrove conservation can actually aid in the promotion of climate resilience, especially in the archipelagic state of the Philippines, where mangrove ecosystems are present in various parts of the country. I'm guessing I'm not the only one with questions right now. So for our participants, you can chat the questions. And while we're waiting for your uh, questions, we would like to take this time to promote the exclusive Philippine Forestry Youth Summit 2022 merch. And for more information, kindly click on the link that will be sent in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code flashed on the screen. Right, so for our first question po, we have Hamza Adato asking, are there any policies directed at protection and conservation of mangroves? And follow-up question, what are the threats that mangrove ecosystems face?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Yes, we have a lot of policies. We even have right now the RA 7161 that prohibits any form of cutting in our mangrove forests. So that means cutting it to clear for any purpose, particularly for charcoal or for fuel wood or for timber, is not allowed. No, we have a lot of mangrove forests as well that are included in declared protected areas, no NIPAS. We also have a lot of ordinances from various LGUs declaring mangrove areas as part of their municipal seascape, no protected seascape. So with that question, there are so many, but let me make say something that is I think it's more relevant, or I think we have to be critical. Even though we have so much policies, we always find a lot of faults and shortcomings in the implementation of these policies. And perhaps a prospective answer, what could be the needed policies on top of the many policies that we have at the national level, even at the local level, is I think the policy on to somehow require a mangrove rehabilitation plan for DNR and also for LGUs with mangrove forests in their under their jurisdiction. And that mangrove management plan would be very helpful to zone, to provide the proper management zoning of the mangrove um, areas, mangrove areas that will be set aside for protection, mangrove areas that will be set aside for other purposes like ecotourism, and perhaps with that mangrove management plan, areas that can be set aside for limited harvesting of wood, no? Hence, that will basically conform to the sustainable forest management framework that we have, that there should be a harmony between the economic goals, ecological goals, and equity or social goals. All right. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you po, Dr. Gevanya. For the next question, we have Bon from Apps BU. Sabi niya, forests act like two-bladed swords. Since they are both a cause and a solution to carbon emissions, and since they are both a cause and a solution to carbon emissions. To add to that, mangrove forests are 10 times more efficient than terrestrial forests at absorbing carbon. But when they are cut, do they also emit carbon at a rate 10 times that of terrestrial forest? Is the penalty for illegally cutting down mangrove forests higher than for other types of forests?
Okay. Yeah, good good observation. Well, it's not really 10 times, huh? It's just, 3 to 4 times than the other terrestrial forest ecosystem. And that's a straightforward question. Like if you have lost mangroves, then that would mean that you'll be losing as well as 3 to 4 times, most probably, because as I mentioned a while ago, that big, the bulk of carbon stock is not really on the vegetation, is on the sediments or the mud. Hence, if we allow deforestation, the removal of vegetation, eventually that mud won't be kept intact, no, because of the tidal exchanges, the waves. Hence, they will be washed away, those carbon stock that are in the sediments. That kind of study, I believe that there's not much study yet, still a gray area to look at that dynamics of the loss of carbon stock on the sediment because of uh, you know uh, either erosion, no, but I believe in view